Today on Dinosaur Nerds, I'm going to open it up to a little bit of Q&A. You know, we get a lot of questions out in the museum, and several of them pop up over and over again. So I'm going to answer some of the more common questions we hear as part of the show today. People often ask, what's that round thing I see in the eye sockets of some of these skeletons? That round thing is a series of bones called a sclerotic ring. Now, on animals that don't have a perfectly spherical eyeball, that sclerotic ring sits inside the eye and supports the lens so that it can help them form a nice consistent focal point and they can see a clear image. These rings happen in fish, we see them in birds, modern and fossil birds, we see them in dinosaurs, but not in mammals or crocodilians. It's just one of those cool little bones that sits inside the eye and helps them see clearly. We also get asked a lot about our Pteranodon. Now the Pteranodon is this great big pterosaur with this huge head and this great big crest on it, and people want to know, how does an animal with that big of a head, that big of a bony head, fly? It's got to be lightweight to fly, doesn't it? That's true. The thing you got to remember about pterosaurs is that they are flying reptiles, and as such, they've got these really thin bones. Sometimes when I'm working on it, I feel like I'm working on cleaning rock off of a piece of notebook paper. It's very thin, and inside the skulls of these pteranodons, the bone has this kind of spongy, almost styrofoam-like texture. So although it was really large, it wasn't very massive. It was still very lightweight. So an animal like a pteranodon could still fly because it still had a lightweight skeleton. Folks also want to know, how do you know where to look for fossils? Well, we start with something called a geological map. A geological map is a type of map that geologists have put together. It shows us the different kinds of rock formations that are out there in the world. Now, when we know the kind of rock formations that we're looking for, we can start by finding the ones that are the right age. We most frequently work on rocks that are of late Cretaceous age. Next, we go out and scout around for badlands areas. Badlands areas are where there's a lot of erosion and exposed rock. You know, we don't go out and look in big grassy areas because bones just aren't exposed out there. They might be several feet down or several hundred feet down, but there'd be no way that we could know that because there's grass in the way. Once we know where the badlands areas are, we get written permission to go out on the land and look for the fossils. This is really important. You have to have permission to go out on somebody's property or even to go out on government property and look for fossils. People want to know how we know something's a bone once we're out in the field. This one's a little trickier. You got to spend a lot of time developing your eye and the skill set to be able to recognize it, but there are a few things we look for. Number one, it's really going to look like a bone. If you've ever found a modern bone and you've seen it in cross-section after it's been broken, there's a lot of spongy material. There's a lot of vascularization through the bone, and we see the same thing in fossil bone. I also look for the color of it. A lot of bones have a different color than the rock around them. When we're in Montana, sometimes there's an orangey color. Out in Kansas, the fish bones have a nice dark brown color, and the reptile bones have a bit of a grayish color. You really look for anything that doesn't really fit with the background. Finally, I also test it by tapping it with my pocket knife. The bones will make a slightly glassier sound than if I tap the rock around it. So I can look at color, I can look at the general texture, and I can listen to how it sounds. Lastly, people are constantly asking, who would win in a fight, T-Rex or Spinosaurus? And I think this is kind of a slam dunk, easy one to answer. T-Rex. Obviously T-Rex would win in this fight. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, T-Rex is just about 1,000,000 times cooler than Spinosaurus ever was. I may be biased, but I'm also right. Now, you got to remember also that Spinosaurus spent its life hunting fish. And T-Rex spent its life hunting big dinosaurs and biting other T-Rexes in the face. This is a big, heavy-bodied animal that had a really powerful bite force, and Spinosaurus was an angler. And finally, I suppose T-Rex would have won because Spinosaurus died off like 30 million years before the first T-Rex ever showed up. I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty easy to win a fight against something that's already dead. Unless, of course, there's like ghost Spinosaurs.